top 10 low-tech solutions to high-tech problems. Number 10. Ostrich feathers and car makers. Car makers put a lot of effort into ensuring your new automobile rolls out of their factories with a spotless paint job. That's why they heavily spend money on nation-of-the-art system like high-tech portray stations, business robots and ostrich feathers. Did we simply say ostrich feathers? Yes. Lady ostrich feathers. Honestly, the smallest dirt particle can destroy the quality paint job, and no person is aware of that higher than car makers. This is why they demarcate their portray departments from the principal manufacturing unit. They even blast workers and site visitors to the painting departments with air to dispose of dirt and unfastened fiber that may be striking on their garments. However, that isn't sufficient, considering the fact that minute dirt debris still locate their manor in and stick on motors looking forward to painting. Car makers do away with these debris by jogging the motors through giant dusters constructed from lady ostrich feathers proper earlier than painting. Number 9. Mirrors and elevators. Early elevators did not have mirrors. Manufacturers most effective brought mirrors because they did not want to make investments their time, attempt and cash into making quicker elevators. It all started out numerous decades in the past, at a time while elevators were still a new invention. Users regularly complained the elevators have been too sluggish. Most elevator producers back to the drawing board to lay out quicker elevators, which turned into expensive. However, one business enterprise determined to do things a chunk differently. It performed a research and located most customers' idea elevators had been slower than they without a doubt have been. People simplest complained due to the fact they'd not anything to do other than stare at the walls of the elevators, even as thinking about the various awful things that would appear if the cables snapped and the elevator fell to the ground. The elevator company concluded they needed a manner to distract people. They delivered mirrors so humans should think about their appearance whilst in elevators. Users right away lost track of time, and now concept elevators have been quicker than they were. Number 8. Angled runways and plane carriers. If you've seen an overhead photograph of a cutting-edge plane provider or maybe visible on up near, you may word the runway is usually angled and in no way immediately. This contrasts with the World War II era plane companies that had straight runways. Why is this so? This has a whole lot to do with the discovery of the jet engine. World War II technology companies carried propeller-driven airplanes, which required shorter runways to take off and land. This meant the providers should launch and recover airplanes concurrently. However, this changed when jet-powered airplanes came alongside. Jet engines require longer runways for takeoff or touchdown. This intended the companies have been both launching or recovering airplanes and couldn't do both at the identical time. On top of that, landing jets that ignore the arresting twine, which helps in hastily decelerating a landing airplane, could now not have sufficient runway area to taxi and take off to strive another landing. One option to those issues turned into to construct larger plane providers with longer runways. This suggestion turned into solid aside, as it did now not solve all the aforementioned troubles. A 2D inspiration became to leave landing airplanes soaring above the surface whilst different airplanes took off. However, this too became deserted due to the fact jets do not carry sufficient fuel. The one-third alternative turned into to tilt the runways on present companies to maximize runway area. The angled runways were longer and solved every issue the military had with shorter airlines. Number 7. PlayStation 3 consoles and supercomputers. A few years ago, the United States Air Force used 1,760 Sony PlayStation 3 consoles to build the maximum effective supercomputer in the U.S. Department of Defense and the 33rd maximum effective supercomputer in their world. The supercomputer was so effective that it could perform 500 million mathematical operations in 1 second and examine over 1 billion pixels in a single minute. The Air Force used it to procedure high-resolution satellite photographs, identify doubtful objects in space and studies into artificial intelligence. A PlayStation 3 valued $400 apiece on the time the Air Force constructed the supercomputer, even as a similar element from an actual PC, fee around $10,000. This positioned the value of the entire task at $2 million, that is between 5–10% the charge of an ordinary supercomputer of similar functionality. Number 6. Xbox 360 controllers and nuclear submarines. A periscope is one of the defining functions of a submarine. It's that tube-like instrument submariners use to peer above water even as submerged. Periscopes have seen an improvement of past due and have developed from the conventional tube-like pole with 45 diploma mirrors into excessive precision cameras which can see 360 stages above the submarine. The U.S. Navy makes use of these modern-day periscopes in its present-day Virginia Elegant nuclear-powered submarines. However, this high-tech device has the most low-tech controls ever, the Xbox 360 controller. The use of Xbox controllers in U.S. Navy submarines is a latest improvement. Until some years ago, the Navy managed its digital periscopes with $38,000 joysticks. It only swapped them for Xbox controllers after junior officials complained the joysticks have been huge, heavy and required sizable education. Xbox 360 controllers, however, cost around $39.95 a piece. They're light, clean to use and do no longer require widespread training. They are also easy to replace due to the fact they may be bought from the nearest recreation keep. Number 5. Velcro and NASA. The absence of gravity is one of the maximum obvious issues NASA encountered inside the early days of space tour. As all of us realize, gravity is the cause the whole lot stays on the ground. In a weightless environment like space, anything that isn't secured to the ground or partitions will simply maintain floating round. NASA wished a way to maintain tools and device from floating round without necessarily bolting them to the floor or the wall, so it grew to become to Velcro. The inventor of hook and loop fasteners and both labored collectively to perfect a hook and loop fastener that will not handiest keep stuff from floating round, however may even survive the intense environment of space. NASA makes use of lots of Velcro in its tasks. It even introduced them to spacesuit helmets so that astronauts can scratch their noses while spacewalking. Little surprise, many people erroneously suppose NASA invented hook and loop fasteners. NASA did no longer invent hook and loop fasteners, but as it said about Velcro in 1969, we couldn't fly without it. Number 4. Rats and landmines. Landmines are a big trouble in former war zones. Considering they only explode when a person or something steps on them, they could remain energetic for many years, even lengthy after the warfare is over. Every year, lots of people lose their lives after stepping on forgotten landmines. Finding and deactivating those landmines is a completely hard and perilous job. In spite of bomb detection device, some businesses update the bomb detection system with bomb detection dogs. However, those dogs are frequently high-priced to move and complicated to use. In 1997, An anti-landmine NGO known as APOPO stepped in with a cheaper and better answer: rats. These aren't your regular subway rats, however, the African giant pouched rat, which are as large as cats. The rats have terrible eyesight, however first-rate feel of odor, which they use to hit upon the TNT inside their landmines. African giant pouched rats are faster and better than humans and puppies. A rat will cowl 2,000 square toes in only 20 minutes. A human prepared with bomb detectors will cover the identical distance in 4 days. The rats are also light, sufficient to stroll over landmines without triggering them. APOPO's rats have detected over 13,200 landmines in numerous international locations thus far. Number 3. A $10 domain call and Wannacry. A few years ago, the arena skilled one of the worst ransomware assaults ever seen. Wannacry, because it was called, infected over 300,000 computers in 150 international locations. The virus locked proprietors out in their computer systems and told them to pay hundreds of greenbacks in Bitcoin as ransom. Wannacry persevered, ravaging the world until a man recognized as malware tech offered a domain name. Domain names are not high-priced. They fee around $10 on average. However, that easy motion became enough to render Wannacry docile. It immediately stopped spreading and removed itself from each computer it had infected. How did this manifest? This took place because malware tech exploited the identical component that made Wannacry a success. Unlike normal viruses, ransomwares continually hold a verbal exchange channel that hyperlinks the attacker to the sufferer. While this may sound dumb, the attacker honestly wishes this channel to ship payment records to their victims, collect ransoms and free up their computers after payment. However, this verbal exchange channel works both ways because law enforcement groups sought to use it to song the attackers. Attackers counter this by constructing kill switches into their virus. This lets in them to close down their viruses the instant they think they're being tracked. For Wannacry, that kill transfer turned into a website call. The attackers programmed the virus to check the internet for an unregistered area call at durations. The virus would hold spreading if the area remained unregistered, however, will right away prevent the instant it was registered. Malware tech located that kill transfer and registered the area call, stopping the virus. Number 2. Speed tape and airplanes. We all realize airplanes require ordinary preservation in view that pilots cannot park on the nearest cloud each time they run into problems. However, preservation is a massive phrase here due to the fact that it could check with something as fundamental as protecting the aircraft together with speed tape. Think of velocity tape because the duct tape for airplanes. Like duct tape, they are able to repair the entirety despite the fact that aviation authorities limit them to keeping non-critical elements of the plane together. They're considered a transient answer and the fault can be typically taken care of out the next time the plane goes into upkeep. Speed tape costs a few hundreds to heaps of dollars. While that could appear expensive, it's miles less expensive while in comparison to the lots or maybe tens of millions of greenbacks airlines will lose if airplanes were taken out of service each time they have got troubles. Number 1. iPhones and the United States Army Special Operations Command. The U.S. Army Special Operations Command uses many specialized mobile apps at some stage in top Navy operations. However, rather than developing costly devices to deal with those apps, they turn to a cheaper opportunity, iPhones. While we do no longer know what the general public of these apps do, we recognize of one that uses the break-up screen function of the iPhone. The operator sees a live pictures shot from a flying unmanned aerial vehicle on one part of the screen and a map displaying the course taken by using the UAV on the alternative. A Business Insider file discovered the Navy formerly used Android-powered Samsung Galaxy Note smartphones earlier than switching to the iPhone 6s. The switch changed into necessary because the apps often froze on Samsung, continuously requiring the operators to restart the device. On pinnacle of that, the iPhone 6s additionally had higher display resolution, which made pictures and videos sharper, before this turns into any other Samsung iPhone, Android iOS or Google Apple warfare. We must upload that the Department of Defense pitched the older Samsung phones it become the use of at the time against the newer iPhone 6s for the duration of tests. Like us, subscribe our channel and share.